Okay, I think you're good.
Okay, oh, we're on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everybody. It's very good to see everyone's faces here. So good evening and welcome to the December 9th, 2020 Mercer Island Arts Council regular video meeting. I'm Erin Vivian, Chair of the Arts Council. In accordance with Proclamation 2028-11 and the Governor's Extended Safe Start Order, tonight's Arts Council meeting is using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. The video of this meeting is being broadcast live via Zoom and will be uploaded to the city's YouTube channel later this evening. City staff, Sarah Bluvas and Tammy Bodmer, and other staff members are participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Other public audience members are listening to this meeting by telephone or via internet. So welcome to everyone and thank you for joining tonight. Board members, please ensure that your microphones are turned on for the following roll call. Will staff please call the roll?
Yes, and actually Tammy just sent me a message. It looks like Suzanne is watching, but we need to get her in as a participant. So Tammy, can you help troubleshoot that right now? But we have enough people to do roll call and we'll get her in when she's in. So I'll go ahead. Chair Erin Vivian.
Here.
Vice Chair Amy Barnes.
Here.
Eric Gordon.
Here.
Shishi Shakes.
Here.
Suzanne Scone. I'm getting her in. And Gayleen Vaden.
Here.
And Anumeha told us that she would be absent tonight as well. So we'll catch her at the next meeting. Okay.
All right. Do we want to take a minute to wait for Suzanne or just keep going? Just a quick reminder that as we get into discussion to try to use the raise your hand feature. I mean, there are so few of us here that I think it'll be pretty easy to manage the discussion, but just to not talk over people, raise your hand or, you know, do this and somebody will see you. Everyone will get a chance to comment. So I also talked with Sarah earlier today and we're just gonna make a slight adjustment to the agenda tonight. Staff anticipate that the Arts Council's work and staff support will be limited again in 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic and changes to city operations and budget. So with that in mind, we'd like to discuss meeting frequency and the work plan for 2021. So first, we'll review the minutes and then welcome Sarah for her staff update, which will include a budget update and the Parks and Rec recovery plan work. And then we'll have a brief discussion about our work and schedule. And then if there are no objections, to that plan, we'll move forward as requested. The first item of regular business is to review and consider approving the October 14th, 2020 minutes. Board members may have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 14th meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes. This is Amy.
I second. This is Gayleen.
Thanks, Amy. There was a motion by Amy, and thank you, Gayleen. A second by Gayleen. So staff, please conduct a roll call vote. Board members, microphones on. We'll do a vote on approving the minutes quickly.
Okay, Vice Chair Amy Barnes.
Yes.
Anumeha, absent. Eric Gordon.
Yes.
Shishi Shakes.
Approve.
Suzanne Scone.
Approve.
And Gayleen Vaden.
Approve.
And Chair Erin Vivian.
Approve.
Great. Okay, the motion passes. Your minutes are approved.
All right. Okay, so Sarah would like to welcome you to give us a staff update, please.
So I'm going to share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Thumbs up?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so I thought I'd start with some really happy news. We have some arts happenings going on in the island this winter. First and foremost, big shout out to the annual MyVol Holiday Show. I know, I'm sure everyone's very sad that we weren't able to hold the tradition and continue exhibiting this exhibit at the Community Center Gallery again this year because of the pandemic, but I'm really excited that MyVol has been able to continue it at the gallery. It's on view through December 20th at the gallery here, which is in Town Center. I hope everyone's been there before, but if you haven't, here's the address and the open hours. You can also call for an after hours appointment, and I'm pretty sure that this is Judith's phone number. Judith Roan is on the call with us tonight because she'll be talking with us about the public art donation proposal from MyVol. So I think you might call Judith and get a private appointment if you need to. And they are observing COVID restrictions, so make sure you wear your masks and socially distance. There's also some other projects that are going on to activate Mercer Island Town Center with art. So one is in connection with the Illuminate MI project that started back in November, which largely consisted of installing lights, twinkle lights on 78th Avenue in Town Center from the Sculpture Park to Mercerdale Park. And I believe the Mercerdale tree is either lit now or it should be by the end of the week. So if you haven't checked out those lights, go ahead and head downtown to see them. But for our part, we're also installing what we're kind of calling an art light installation with George Lee, who you may remember. We've been working with him through the creative consultancy program through For Culture. So he's working on a project in the outdoor gallery to bring some light and another attraction there. We're also working with local artist Zeynep Balev, who is a MyVol member as well, to kind of revamp an art walk scavenger hunt that actually Aaron had created a few years ago for some of the works of art in Town Center. Zeynep's working to kind of update that, add more works of art, and create an actual map that I'm hopeful people can either download digitally from home. Maybe it'll either be available through the Arts Council website or Let's Talk or all of the above, as well as incorporate the story platform somehow so we can get that back up and running. And then there's a picture here, if you can see it. There's a really beautiful winter art mural going up at the Boyd Building. There's a business that's expanding into the Mercer Island Chamber of Commerce's old offices at the Boyd Building in Town Center, and Ginny Clark from Clark & Clark Art and Artifacts worked with Lori Guyven and Ann Ritze, another local artist, to cover the ugly plywood that's currently covering up the construction that's going on with the mural. Right now it's winter themed, and I think the hope is that because the plywood will be up for a few more months, that they'll sort of refresh it over, you know, the course of those months with different themes. So I think the hope is that it'll become a little bit of a Mercer Island selfie wall. So again, if you're in Town Center, I encourage you to check it out. Not sure if you all stayed on top of all of the budget deliberations over the past several weeks in city council meetings, but the 2021-2022 city budget was officially adopted on December 1st. The final document should be published on the city website by the end of January, so you can go check it out and read through all of the different projects and opportunities, positions that were funded in part for the city's new organizational structure. If you remember when Ryan Daly spoke to you all back at the October meeting, we talked about some of the changes to city operations, and in particular, the major impacts to the Parks and Recreation Department and operations, in large part due to the pandemic. So the plan still is that Parks and Rec operations will be spread across multiple departments. Part of that is what we're calling an operations transition team. So that will include, you can see the org chart here, the one on the top. It's a couple of recreation coordinators, one that is part-time and then one full-time limited term, as well as the thrift shop, because we're doing a lot of recovery planning for the thrift shop as well. So part of the goal with that team is to get the community center and recreation programming back up and running. Ryan and some of our other colleagues who were also formerly in the Parks and Rec department and still with the city in different roles, were working with a consultant to get that up and running. Also important to kind of note, there's a new economic development coordinator position in the community planning and development department. I think Ryan may have touched on that at the last meeting as well. And the reason this is significant is I'm not sure what's happening with this position yet. I've been working with the local business community through my emergency operations role. So if and when this position becomes available for recruitment, I will likely apply for it because I would love to continue working with the city. So there may be kind of more updates related to that. And of course, I would love to continue working with the Arts Council. So all of that to say, kind of your staff support and what the staff resources and kind of who will oversee the Arts Council from a staff perspective is still kind of up in the air, but hopefully we'll have a clear plan at the end of the year heading into 2021. So the other big thing with operations and budget update, I also think that Ryan may have touched briefly on the recovery planning. So we have kind of gone full force into what we're actually calling a reset plan. It's not a recovery or a restart, because a lot of the focus is on doing operations differently than how we did them before, in particular with how we manage the community center and split between kind of rentals and community-based programming, as well as how we bring our recreation services back online. Another piece of this is bringing arts back online. I think that the main focus right now is really the facility itself and programming. I know we are trying to get to a point where we can offer summer camps next summer. That's kind of a big push, and I think something that will be recommended as part of the plan. And then the arts piece is really going to be, I think, kind of a longer term, more long range effort. We're working with the same consultant. I actually had a meeting with her today to talk through some of where we're at, and she fully plans on bringing the Arts Council into these discussions. We'd like to do a planning workshop with you all, tentatively planned for the January 13th meeting, although she and I need to figure out, how much work, what all we need to accomplish by that meeting. So that may change, but we're really looking forward to kind of using that as an opportunity to, I think, guide some of these conversations we've been having around, what is the state of arts in the community? How can the Arts Council support that? And what really does 21 and 22 look like for the Mercer Island Arts Council, since we know things will look a little bit different. So what does this mean for the Arts Council? So currently there's no Arts Council operating budget included in the city budget that was adopted last week. But as part of the reset plan, there will likely be, probably in mid-2021, I'd say in the second quarter, maybe April or May, or maybe sooner than that, some possible budget adjustments. So that basically the process is we go to City Council and request changes to the budget that was adopted. So that's part of the reason it's really great to get involved in the reset planning work early next year, in order to kind of identify, what are we able to do? What are the essential functions? What is the Arts Council able to do? And what kind of resources might you all need in order to accomplish that? On the flip side, related to funding, the 1% for Art in Public Places Fund is still going strong. It's sitting with a balance of almost $154,000. I'm Not sure what contributions we will end up getting after this year, in part because we didn't do a ton of public construction projects, but I definitely will bring an update to you all when I have it. So, you know, that's a good thing to know, that that fund is safe and still going strong. Like I mentioned before, we're still kind of unclear what staffing resources will be assigned to the Arts Council, but we will let you know as soon as possible. If I'm still working with the city, I would love to continue working with the Arts Council and, you know, help revive kind of some of the work that we were doing before. And we anticipate, again, kind of a continuation of the limited work plan. So likely a continued pause on things like gallery exhibits, at least until we have a plan for reopening the community center. Potentially a pause again on programming, you know, big programming like mostly music in the park, depending on how restrictions related to gatherings go and all of that. But we'll continue to evaluate that. I'm hopeful that, you know, things will shift, especially as vaccines become available and the, you know, we really start bringing the community more out of this pandemic and looking ahead. And I think that the Arts Reset Plan will really help inform that work plan as well. So I wanted to kind of, like Erin mentioned, you know, opportunity to talk about some of this and have kind of a brief discussion looking maybe in preparation for that conversation with Emily Moon after the first of the year next year. You know, it's a big picture question, but given everything that's happened this year and knowing the limitations from a city perspective that we have, I really just wanted to start hearing from you all about, you know, how you sort of see the Arts Council serving the Mercer Island community and also maybe the region as a whole, knowing that our arts ecosystem has taken a huge hit from this pandemic. You know, what big picture would you all like to try to focus on in 2021? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now so we can see everyone for conversation, but I'm really just open to kind of things you've already been thinking about, or maybe, you know, immediate reactions to some of what you've heard from us about city operations and budget changes.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll jump in first, just because I've been thinking about this. And I think we talked a little bit about this at our last meeting. You know, clearly nothing is business as usual. We're not going to be going back to business as usual with the Arts Council anytime soon. So this is a good opportunity for us to really decide what we want to look like in response to what's going on at a broader level, like you said, in the creative and cultural sector. I think for me personally, I feel like we've stepped back a little bit and we've been on this pause because we haven't had much autonomy to do anything on our own. But I would love to discuss within our members how, knowing that our staff resources are very limited, are we ready on our own to say, okay, let's meet in smaller groups in between meetings, let's take back some autonomy and figure out how we can plan to move forward without a budget. My 2 points that I think I want to make right now is just that taking the opportunity to reevaluate what our mission is as an arts council and what we see in the value of arts in our community, arts, culture, and how they relate to our development as a community, right? And what a perfect opportunity to maybe take this time, like Bellevue has done recently, and take the Arts Council out of a recreation sphere and bring it under the community development umbrella. If that's something that would be feasible, the city is going to create this new position for a coordinator. Let's think about how can we advocate to bring our Arts Council into that realm so that we are really acknowledging the interlinking of community development, culture, small business. Mercer Island small businesses really are part of the creative and cultural sector. Many of them are. So let's just really tie that and firm that up together. That's my first thing I'd love people to talk about and think about. And then secondly, how do we want to start functioning as a real like advocacy body? Because we're not going to be doing any sort of big public art projects right now. I don't envision. We just don't have the staff or the resources to do any programming. No performing arts, no Mercer Island, you know, Mercer music in the park, sorry. So what can we be doing to really, like you said, what should we be doing to serve our community and our arts community, our artists, our small businesses that are part of the creative economy? My ideas are first to like look at what the region is doing and keep those connections that we've been making with regional organizations and teaming up with the recovery efforts in the region, because there's a lot going on, and to bring that back to the island in a more significant way. I was talking with Sarah earlier today about the idea we had pre-pandemic about making that connection with City Council, and would people be interested in taking some of these bits of knowledge to help educate the community about the impact that this crisis is having on the cultural sector and the huge economic impacts, which lead to, I was thinking about the mental health impacts. I mean, how many people are out of work because some of the cultural sector is being hit the hardest, and how that's going to play out over time. So I think we have an opportunity to be advocates for the arts and cultural sector by maybe using public appearances at City Council meetings to rotate. One of us attends a meeting, uses the 3 minutes to inform City Council what's going on in the region, what's happening in the cultural sector, and start advocating in slow bits like that. And then I guess remind them that we're here too. So, and then from there we can build some advocacy efforts to getting a budget back and move from there. But those are sort of my two ideas. Can we look at a bigger picture, like moving the Arts Council, and then what small steps can we take to start advocating for the cultural sector? I mean, what the projections for Washington State for 2020, the losses to the cultural sector are like at least 130 or something million, and it's in the hundreds of billions for the United States. And you know, Washington State is, I think, second in GDP for the cultural sector, bringing in like 8% of GDP, which is the second highest of any of the states in the US. So we have this big sector. It's been hit very hard, and we can't just sit back anymore and say, well, you know, this is not affecting Mercer Island, because it is. And I think we have a little bit of a responsibility and a duty as the Arts Council to start helping how we can. And small steps is by helping to bring information in to our community first off, and then working how we can to help. And I know some of us have been doing that already, but we haven't been doing it formally as an Arts Council. And I think it's just important for our group to maintain those connections. Have I talked too long now? Who else wants to say something? Anyone else have ideas about this, about our group moving forward?
This is Amy. I have struggled with it because we have not been autonomous. You know, every once in a while we have small groups, but with a specific purpose, but we just haven't operated that way. And I'm struggling to figure out how to operate without the support staff and without the budget, without decision-making, autonomous decision-making. I appreciate your points, Erin.
One thing I would say to that, Amy, is just a reminder to everyone, you know, you are an advisory board to City Council. So while we while we may not be in a position to go back to the $40,000 operating budget right away and have a full-time staff person who's helping implement projects and programs, there are still kind of key essential functions that staff will have to do that we need your guidance for, and City Council needs your recommendations for. The biggest thing that comes to mind, and I feel a little like a broken record because I've been saying this all kind of years, like we have the public art collection, which is a huge untapped resource. And I know you've done a lot of work with the outdoor gallery and a lot of work, connecting kind of with Story and all of that. Erin's done a lot as well. And I think most people on this call are really interested in the public art collection. So there's opportunity there to kind of go back to what some of those essentials are. Like those are assets that the city has to manage. We can't just let the public art collection slide. So there's a lot of opportunity, and there will be support for something like that. Same thing with policies and some of what I think you all were starting to talk about at the beginning of the year, and kind of breaking off into groups around like the education and awareness piece. So it will definitely look different. Like I can't promise that we'll have a lot of staff support to start off again with 7 gallery exhibits at the community center, for instance, but we can look at the fact that gallery space is a need in the community, and it's also a need on the east side of on the east side. We're losing a lot of galleries around the region. So maybe that's an opportunity and becomes an essential function, thinking about that facility as another asset, and devoting resources to that. So I definitely hear you. Like, I think it's going to be a shift, especially as we've kind of gone from we went 0 to 60, but in the other way, we were going fast, we were working hard, and then all of a sudden we stopped. So we kind of have to get back, like Erin said, a little bit to some of those basics. So.
This is Suzanne. I just would kind of pipe in and say, maybe starting with taking inventory of your Arts Council to see how much time and energy people think they might have in the next whatever year, knowing that we're pretty much going to still be locked down for 6 months of that, if not longer. So I guess I'd kind of start there. I mean, I have a ton of enthusiasm for this, and I would love to think outside of the box. I think this event that's happened to us once in a century is a really great opportunity to just reinvent and recreate, or not even is to do something completely amazing and redefine what Mercer Island is and where we are in the region. So that's where I'm coming from, but I understand, I don't have kids at home that I'm trying to educate, and I don't have a job that I'm trying to keep up with. So I guess that's my comment.
Thank you. Well, that's exactly what I would love to, if we want to one by one talk about what sort of efforts you have. That's a great point. I mean, what sort of resources can you devote to us? Because things are so different. You're absolutely right. All our time responsibilities have changed drastically, I think. So if anyone else wants to chime in on how they are feeling about their participation moving forward, or how they have any ideas about their vision for the Arts Council as we move into uncharted territory, the no budget Arts Council.
Hi everybody. I have a suggestion, and I agree everything has been said. I think to Suzanne's point, if we could come up with a list of projects or work in progress that we are able to do, and just have more of a clearly defined set of tasks, and then we'll have, you know, we'll have the stuff that we could do, and then we'll have people on the other side, our board, and everybody comes from a different place right now in terms of how much time they can give, and so we could do some sort of matching and sort of, you know, dedicate our resources to the things that we are able to do under the very, you know, limited, the special circumstances. I think that would be a good starting point. I think it's having clarified goals.
And I would pop in on that though and say, I don't even know if we have, I guess I'm totally in the dark as far as what we have in the way of volunteer hour power to even do what you're saying, you know, so do we even have the ability to scope out what we want to do? Because I mean, I think people almost have to make a commitment to this board, you know, whether it's 1 hour a week or 5 hours a week, or, you know, I mean, if you know, and maybe it has a lapse of I'll be in Hawaii for a month or whatever. And there's no judgment to it at all. It's just that we have to be realistic about what people can do and sensitive to what they can do. So I guess I'm saying, you know, whether it's a doodle poll or calling each arts council person. I know that's a lot to ask, and having that conversation and saying, how much can you really put in the next 6 months?
Well,
Yeah.
Suzanne, a good way to
I agree with that.
Is that sorry, I was just going to say that a good way to look at that is also that what have we been doing individually? You know, like what have we been doing that let's communicate to each other now. Like what, Suzanne, you've been doing a lot, you know, with the community and reaching out with small business. And
I have, but like I said, I don't have 4 kids at home. You know, I can't imagine what it's like for the people that have kids at home and jobs and, you know, a lot of other things going on in their lives. I just happen to be in a situation that honestly, it's a joy for me to volunteer as much as possible right now.
So what I meant by matching, I didn't mean like it's in a mandatory way. I think it would for people to voluntarily choose the area.
Yeah.
Maybe they've worked in before, or they're now interested in doing, and we're all pivoting to what can be done and how much we can do, and then just sort of form the basis of the plan that way.
Yeah. I just didn't know how we got to the plan to dedicate to.
So I can chime in.
I'm still
really
not clear what they are.
Yeah, so I can chime in really quickly on the actual plan element, and then it looks, I think Galen and hands raised too, so we can get to them. But so the arts reset as part of the recovery planning with the community center and recreation, I think that will be the opportunity to work with the consultant to identify what the plan looks like, what the roadmap is. So I guess I would say, you know, I would say no decisions need to be made tonight, obviously, but be thinking about, to both Suzanne and Shishi's points, like what time you feel you're able to commit to. But because all of you have been involved with the Arts Council, you know, some of you for many years, I want to make sure that you all are at the table when we start that process at the first of the year with the consultant, because you all are the ones who are going to be able to say, you know, this is where we were, this is what was working really well, and this is what wasn't working, and these are the resources we needed in order to pull this off. Like, I want all of you to still be there. And then when we come to kind of the end of that workshop, one of the outputs for that will be kind of a draft roadmap of what it looks like through the next couple of years with recovery. And then from there, I would say we can kind of take stock of, you know, what are people able to commit to then, and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to put that out there, that for once we have some consulting resource to actually help you all come up with the plan. And the city is definitely committed to making sure that arts is a piece of this recovery.
That's great, Sarah, and a really good piece of news. And I just want to apologize to Galen and Eric, because I was scanning everybody's faces, and I had not pulled up the little cartoon hand. So I didn't see you there. But before I move to you guys, I just want to also point out that instead of formulating a plan and like determining how many hours we can each contribute at this point, I think it's important to like step back also as an arts council and take stock of what our arts community is needing right now. And it's like shouting loud and clear. I mean, 99% of arts organizations have had to cancel functions. People are laid off, they're furloughed. There's like recovery efforts. It's not about like, what projects can we do as an arts council? It's like, how can we bring the info and sort of talk to our community and our artists and serve the needs of our cultural community. And my proposal is that we start reaching out and gather this information before we decide, well, what should we do? And then that gathering process, it's communicating it to the city council. To maybe a lot of people don't know what's going on in the cultural sector because they're busy with, you know, maintaining the fire department, but it's important. And I think that's sort of part of our basic understanding of the cultural sector, is that it's tied together with the well-being of our community and the economy, and just starting small by reaching out regionally. Okay, can somebody tell me who had their hand up first, Galen or Eric? Galen? Okay, Galen.
Okay, so I mean, again, to the cart before the horse thing, and I apologize. I had audio the whole time, but I had lost the connection. I was out in the public for a while, so unable to contribute, but I could hear you all at all points. So I attended the East Side Arts Council Coalition meeting. Thank you, Erin, for connecting me with that. And I thought it was really interesting because other cities are taking a very different approach. Not every city, but some of the cities feel like the stability of the arts and feeding the arts at this point is an important component to their long-term community development, their economic development. Like having things like, you know, music in the park brings in tourists that spend money. And so if the arts die in their community, they think it's going to hurt their long-term ability to recover. And I feel like that's one of the first approaches, and one of the most important things we should be doing is planning what economic impact can the arts make on the recovery, and making sure that we get included as part of the budget, not taking whatever money is just to maintain the assets, but actually being a part of the economic plan for recovery.
You articulated that really well, Galen. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm thinking. And I guess I put my horse a little bit before the cart, is that I have been attending those meetings. Well, I stopped in the summer because of some family issues, but I had been attending those meetings frequently in the spring, and some Inspire Washington meetings and some nonprofits advocacy groups that were formed during the pandemic. And my idea is more to synthesize this information and that we're getting from staying in touch regionally and communicate. Like the first step is to communicate. And I think by starting to like educate in small ways, by maybe you, if you'd be willing to go speak for 3 minutes at city council at their next meeting. And then the next meeting, I can speak for 3 minutes. And then Suzanne and Eric the next, so that we're still there, you know? So we help other people see this way of thinking as well here on Mercer Island.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Eric.
Yeah, mine was more about the budget and not having a budget. My question would be, has anyone looked or reached out to the city and asked, we have the 1% for the arts, we have $153,000. Can we make an amendment on what we're allowed to spend it on? Because we're in a pandemic. Can we create a budget out of nothing when we have this money that maybe gets taken for other purposes, but we've got this pool of money sitting there? Can we, say for 12 months, can we tap into this? It doesn't need to be the $40,000 budget that we used to have, but what if it was 20 or 10 or 15? Can we make an exception because we're in a one in 100-year pandemic to fund some of this? Maybe we've already asked that and that's a no, but my question is, could we create something out of nothing since we have this money that we really don't have allocated in the near future?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. We haven't asked that. I've been a little, to be honest, hesitant to even bring up the 1% for Art Fund, just to make sure that it sort of stays safe. Just because we know that, during times like this, as we see with your operating budget, the arts is always the first to go. So I've been kind of quiet on that, but I think that might be a useful approach. I know in the past, I think the Arts Council, maybe back during the recession, or after that, the budget was eliminated and they did some advocacy to try to use 1% funds to restore it. I think ultimately it was restored not using 1% funds. But we have done other emergency ordinances this year in light of the pandemic. So that could be, I think the first thing we would have to do is to identify like, what are we going to use it on? Is it one-time funds to support arts organizations and artists, or is it kind of funding to do community projects or something like that? So I think that's a good idea. Having that funding source can also potentially help you leverage other funding sources that require a budget. I know organizations like For Culture have kind of relaxed their rules this year too. I feel like a lot of funders are doing that in some way because of the pandemic. But I think it's an interesting idea to explore, especially after, kind of identify like, what would you do with it kind of thing.
Yeah, I really like that idea as well. And just to echo Sarah, we would have to have some strong advocacy around that, and some good ideas of what we were going to use it for. So I see more hands up. Eric, did you want to follow up with your comment?
No, that was it. And I guess one more onto that would be if Celine would be a good person to reach out to first if we did have a plan in place and we were worried about, letting them know that this money is there that they could take. He's been, an advocate for us. So maybe that would be the first person we go to and say, hey, what do you think about this idea?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yep. Suzanne, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I appreciate what Eric is saying, but I find that first of all, I'm concerned about how much kind of political work you'd have to do and just work you'd have to do to change the code or get the emergency use of those funds. And I am all about using those funds as they're intended to be used. And I would rather go to the city and say, we have $154,000, project, amazing project to bring to our town center. What we need from you, City Council, is another $15,000, a 10% buy-in to help us spend that $154,000. I'm afraid that if we start spending that, I don't even want to bring council's attention to that budget. So that's what I say about it. just please be careful going down that path is all I'm saying.
That's a fair point as well.
And yeah, and again, I mean, I am first and foremost an advocate for having a plan to spend money and then going out to find the money. So it could be one option. It could be an option that doesn't even need to be brought to the table at all. So, but thank you for raising those concerns.
Yeah, and demonstrating the value of what you're using the money for also, I think is going to be a tough sell right now. So we have to be really smart about that. Gayleen, did you want to chime in again?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Eric's creativity, but I also wouldn't want making a request like that, then cause them to say, well, you know, perhaps this is part of the economic development and you should spend that money that way, rather than recognizing that as part of the economy of the island, an important part of the economy of the island. We should be part of the city's budget overall without having to spend money that was designated for other purposes.
That's a great point too, Gayleen. To that effect, and looking at the arts as part of recovery and development, does anyone have any thoughts on the idea to move us under the umbrella of community development and take us out of the Parks and Rec realm? Is anyone like strongly against or for that idea? No opinions. Does anyone have questions about it? Can I get like a thumbs up if people think that's a good idea?
So is that a possibility?
I think it could be. I don't think anything, like we said, is an impossibility considering we're sort of starting from ground zero right now.
Mm-hmm. I think it's worth exploring.
I think it takes some study to say, look, reflecting back to what our goals and mission is. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I mean, I think council might feel it better fits under, or might send you more money if it was under the economic development umbrella, but I don't know that that's the right fit for our community. So I don't know the answer. I mean, not that you're asking for an answer, but I don't really, I'd have to really, really think about it in cahoots with you guys to really think about that.
Yeah, since everything's getting reorganized, it's really hard to see where we fit. It's so nebulous right now. So if we don't fit in Parks and Rec anymore, well, then we do have a choice. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, just may I throw out one example? I mean, say our gallery at the community center. I mean, I'm not sure how that, I really see how that benefits the community, but I'm not sure that I can argue a lot or easily that it can, that there's commercial, that people going there are buying stuff in downtown Mercer Island, So I don't know, you'd have to look at everything we do and see, I think, where it fits best.
Okay, so I would argue bringing anyone to a gallery, whether it's owned by the city or not, would bring some development. I mean, the traffic onto Mercer Island, bringing people here in any ways would, just like, say, a performing arts center. There's going to be like that trickle down business where somebody might buy some food or a glass of wine before they go to the gallery opening and visit a Mercer Island restaurant. And I think that's the mind frame that we're in right now, or at least I'm in, is that the creative sector impacts the entire community economy. Like, in sort of the same vein we were talking about creative districts, right? So I think that's maybe a shift in thinking that I thought we we're more aligned with as a council, maybe not. So I don't know if we want to make some decisions within ourselves right now to help self-determine where we're going to be in the future. That's what I'm saying, is we don't have any opinions. We let the city determine where we're going to be. And
I would say that, again, kind of this is just a first conversation. And to Amy's point, things are still kind of shaking out with city operations and functions. And, there are 2 other boards or commissions within the Parks and Recreation department. And technically there isn't really a Parks and Rec department right now. So we are kind of exploring what the organizational structure and support for all our boards, I think, to some extent looks like. So I think this conversation is really helpful to just kind of hear where people, where people might need more information, or what really want to weigh the options and what they need to be able to do that. So I don't think that any decisions about anything right now. I wish I had more answers.
Except to maybe some decisions that we should probably move on to, right?
Yes, so, that's a great segue.
Amy, it looks like you took your hand down. So
I do. Can I raise Suzanne wants to raise her hand one more time. If I can. I'm just thinking, economic development wise, this is the first time in the 35 years that I've been on Mercer Island that we have, as a city, spent any money on an economic development, anything. We've ever had an economic development budget. And that budget, as far as I'm aware, and Sarah could weigh in on this, is only for 1 year. So Parks and Recreation is a integral part of our community and very highly esteemed, I would say. So I would be careful about going into the economic development window. Whoever does get that position, is that 1 year that it's funded, that person is going to be super busy, I would assume. And I'm not sure there's a guarantee that there'll be a year 2, or maybe the year 2 will be at 50%, or I don't know. We've never been in this position before where we've actually even had an economic development budget. So I have a lot to think about in regards to your question.
Okay, that's fair. Hopefully having some economic development planning as a new focus of the city will help prevent the city getting into this budgetary crisis that it has been in. Would hopefully they would continue that position. But that's a fair view. Okay, so let's move on to what was next on our agenda?
So really quickly, just to kind of close this out, we can talk for like 2 minutes about meeting frequency for next year.
That's right.
We don't have to make decisions right now, especially if Emily Moon and I are able to coordinate the planning workshop for January. We definitely would like to do that at the January 13th meeting. So maybe as part of that conversation, if that happens in January or February, again, I'll keep you all posted. Another piece that can probably come out of that is thinking about, how often will you all meet? I know things have been kind of sporadic. I imagine that meetings will continue virtually for the foreseeable future. So that's something to consider. We have some flexibility with timing. We don't necessarily have to do it at 6:30 and that kind of thing. So as you're sort of thinking about all of these things about the Arts Council and what are you going to do, keep some of those logistics in mind from a planning perspective so we can figure out the schedule at the first of the year and really kind of map everything out for you all.
Okay. But so for now, we do plan on meeting in January. Is that what you're saying?
I would say let's keep the January 13th meeting on the books unless you hear otherwise from me or another person from the city of Mercer Island.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so we need to have a little talk about the elections process. Sarah, did you want to guide us through this? Okay, so per our Arts Council bylaws, we usually conduct officer elections at the December regular meeting. However, given the atypical nature of Arts Council work due to the pandemic this year, staff have a few options to run through with us for handling our elections this year.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, can you all see this? Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so just really quickly, and I'm sorry, I did not mean to spring officer elections on you all. I remembered last week that we were supposed to do elections in December. So I did some research into what some recommendations are for boards and commissions who are dealing with the same sort of issues this year because of the pandemic. So we have a couple of options that I just wanted to present with you all, and then you know, we can kind of decide on one of these, or you can ultimately just decide to suspend the conversation until January, and then we can move on to the rest of the public art conversation tonight. So just keep that in mind. But so as per your Arts Council bylaws, we usually conduct elections for chair and vice chair at the December meeting. I'm recommending that we maybe reevaluate that process given the reduced board operations this year in light of the pandemic. So a couple of options. One, you could proceed with officer elections as outlined in the bylaws. You could suspend the officer elections until your first meeting in 2021, which right now is tentatively January 13th. Or you could extend the current officers for an established period of time. So you could say, okay, we'd like to extend the current officers for 3 months, and then we'll reevaluate in March or something like that. So just some pretty basic options. I'll stop sharing. And if anyone feels strongly about one versus the other, I would say speak now. Otherwise, I would probably recommend that we opt to suspend elections until at least January, and then pick the conversation back up there and figure out what you'll do for next year.
Amy has a hand raised. I think.
Is that right? Okay. Just given that we've already had a couple discussions around how much time we all have to commit to this coming up and what we're going to do coming up, I would suggest that I agree with Sarah that deciding tonight is probably not the best use of our energy and time for that for now. So at least suspending it until we go through those processes that we talked about.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Eric, did you?
Yeah, I was going to say basically the same thing. I would be in favor of that, or extending it to maybe like a 3-month, if you and Amy are willing to continue your roles.
Amy, do you have anything to say about that?
Only that I was assuming that included all the chairs as well, that discussion. And so maybe some clarification. It doesn't matter to me either way, but I still feel the same, but perhaps that would be useful to clarify.
Sarah, does that include all the committee chairs as well? I would think so.
Yeah, I think that it can. I think it would cover any appointments. I guess one thing to note is that we haven't really done any committee work this year, so we might, again, it'll relate to that next discussion we have about planning, So I think that extending everything and kind of just keeping it as is, the status quo would be fine. It's up to you all.
Okay, I mean, speaking for myself, I would happily continue in the position if that's what everyone would like. However, if somebody feels they would like the opportunity to jump in and take the reins and has that desire to do that, then if anyone wants to do please speak up. No, I just I don't, if somebody feels they have like a lot of effort to dedicate to it right now, I tell you what I have been doing is trying to maintain some presence sort of on an advocacy level and a regional level, and try to gather information and help out with organizations in that way. And if that is what the Arts Council sees and would like me to continue to do, I'm happy to do it. But at the same time, if somebody would like to nominate themselves or feels like we should go through with the elections, Suzanne, what would you like to say?
I would like to make a motion that we postpone this until actually mid-year, like June. And so that's my motion, and maybe there's a second and some discussion on that.
Okay, so Suzanne has made a motion to suspend discussion of officer elections until June.
I second that.
Okay, she seconds that. Do we have any discussion on that? Anyone have comments, questions?
So I want to confirm that Erin and Amy are willing to do that, because we went from a month to 3 months to 6 months. So I just want to make sure that they've bought in on this.
I hadn't really thought about 6 months more, Gayleen. No, that's a good point of discussion. Like I said, I mean, I have not done much for 6 months. We haven't done much for six
Right.
months. And so I would appreciate the opportunity to continue to do it. However, I don't want to fail you all in what I'm doing. I envision that we have a lot of opportunity right now. And like I said, I have all these ideas. Let's go to the city council. Let's bring back information. Legislative session is starting in January, and all these groups are forming for advocacy. I would encourage you all to sign up for the Inspiration League through Inspire Washington. We all should be members of that. And it's easy. You give your email and you get very easy updates on the recovery and advocacy efforts of our state arts advocacy group. And easy tasks, like here is a template for a letter I need you to send to our state senators, and you press it and it goes out. It's easy, it's helpful. These sort of things, gathering this information, bringing it back to Mercer Island, getting people involved is what I really enjoy doing. And if that feels right to you all for the next 6 months, where I can do it where I can do this while I have the kindergarten and 4th grade happening in the same household, I'm happy to. But yeah, that was a little side plug for the Inspiration League. And I can start to send more emails if you all are interested in being more informed with what's going on. And thank you, Gayleen.
Uh-oh.
Hello?
Erin, are you still there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear Gayleen.
I don't see you.
Uh-oh, we've got some frozen situations, I think. Let's see. Oh, let's see. Okay, well, we had a motion on the table. And I have a question, Amy, how do you feel about continuing on potentially for 6 months?
It would be great to help us figure out how we become productive again. I feel like we haven't been productive. Not that we haven't for lack of trying, but we haven't been able to. So it's shut down. So I think a lot of us would like to help with that. But happy to stay on.
Okay. Well, hopefully Erin's trying to get back in. We'll see what happens. Does anybody else have any?
Amy, my
thoughts?
apologies. I thought you expressed similar interest as Erin did, and I must have misheard that.
I'm sorry. I mean,
I said it. My apologies. I was under the assumption. I thought I heard that you are on the same page as Erin. So obviously you have to be okay with this.
thank you. Thanks for checking. I think, to be honest, right now, I just feel that we have so much up in the air. It's hard to make any decisions right now. I'm happy to help however I can, support Erin, support Sarah, whoever, whatever, the whole team, whatever we have to do to get to our next operating norm. We're not.
Amy,
right now.
Amy, would you be comfortable with 3 months?
Yes.
Why don't we do that for now then?
And
Okay,
that.
Hi, Erin.
So the motion was for 6 months. So we either need to amend or vote on that motion and scrap it if it doesn't pass. Okay.
I amend the motion that the extension be for 3 months.
Okay. Is there any more discussion that needs to happen? Anyone have any other thoughts? Okay. All right.
Does an amendment need a second?
Yes, it does.
I'll second it if it needs it.
Okay.
I think that we would vote on the amendment on
Right, why don't I just withdraw this is Suzanne. I'll withdraw my motion for the 6 months period. It's withdrawn.
Okay.
So now we have a motion on the table from Galen for a 3, and I guess I didn't understand, Amy. So you didn't, I also thought you were enthusiastic about 6 months, but you're saying you're enthusiastic about 3 months.
I was actually fine either way. The only thing that I don't want to do is try to resolve all of these decisions prematurely, and tonight's premature, and perhaps January is premature. Since January, we're going to be finding out what we are. So
you're okay whether we do it in 6 months or 3 months?
I have no preference.
Okay, so I think that's the clarity that we need to do. So, gosh, so let's make Amy make the motion. She can either move for 6 months or 3 months.
Well, how much clarity do we think we'll have in 3 months?
In 3 months, I believe that the city will be bringing at least part of the recovery plan to City Council for review and approval. I think that's all tentative timelines, so you could have a fair amount of clarification in March at the earliest, I would say.
Is there any reason we couldn't revisit this in March or extend it if it hadn't been decided at that point?
Yep, we definitely could do that.
That sounds like a good motion.
That seems like a good solution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is there a motion on the floor? Was that Galen has moved to extend the current officer positions by 3 months? Is that correct? Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second it again.
Okay, sorry. I missed a little bit there. I put my computer to sleep by talking too much, I guess. Okay, so is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, so all in favor, do we need to do
we have to do roll call. Okay. Yeah, because it's virtual, I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, Eric Gordon.
Yes.
Shishi shakes. Oh, Shishi, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne Scone.
Yes.
Gayleen Vaden.
Yes.
Erin Vivian.
Yes.
And Amy Barnes. Amy, did you, if you voted, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool. All right. Motion passes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. So as chair, please tell me what you need from me going forward, and I will continue to try to stay connected and bring information back to us. I think now we need to move on. Yes, we have a lot more to discuss tonight, so there's some real business happening. Okay.
And we have some guests.
Yes, and we have guests. Thank you for being patient with us. We haven't met this year, barely at all. So, you know, it's taking us a bit of time to get reacquainted with the meetings and with this new technology. Are we on the third item of business, Sarah?
Yes.
Sorry, I have to look through my agenda on my screen because my printer's not working right now. Otherwise, I would have it here. So now we need to talk about the public art needs. The third item of business is a discussion of needs related to the public art collection. As provided in the agenda packet, there are 3 separate topics that Sarah will discuss with us tonight. I propose that we review and move on the first topic and then proceed to the second and so forth. The first public art topic is a donation proposal from Myval, and welcome. Carol and Judith, Carol Whitaker and Judith Rowan are both joining us from Myval tonight to participate in this discussion, and thank you so much, Carol and Judith, and welcome to you. Sarah, would you like to continue leading this discussion?
Yeah, so I will actually turn it over to Judith and Carol to talk about this proposal. So you all received, the proposal in your agenda packet. This is something that has been in conversation with the city since last November, I think. I know Amy was instrumental in helping to coordinate the conversation and make sure it got to the right people as well. So thank you for that, Amy. But yes, I'd love to hear from you, Carol and Judith, about your proposal, and I'll let you take it away.
Carol, I'll start if that's okay with you.
Do you want me to give some context?
Pardon?
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to plunge right in here. I'm really happy to talk about my husband of over 40 years. So is it all right if I read a brief statement to the?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to thank the Arts Council for considering a Palladium print by my husband, Ron Reeder, who died August 12th, 2019. Ron received his PhD in biochemistry from MIT in 1965, and after a long career in science, he retired to pursue his passion of photography, a passion that began in childhood while living in Japan with his parents and younger brother. Photographing led to exploring the many varied printing processes that first developed in the late 1800s. And as a chemist, Ron perfected tintypes, albumin, salt, cyanotypes, silver gelatin prints, but his favorite process was printing in palladium. You have been presented with 5 prints that I selected for your consideration that are images that represent his skill not only as a photographer, but as a master printer. And indeed, to get to this point, he first devised how to make digital negatives so that he could make contact prints. After this exploratory journey, he wrote and published 3 books on making digital negatives. The last one was just printed and published a month ago. Ron has Palladium prints in the Library of Congress, the UW Special Collections Division, and at the University of Oregon Library. He mentored, taught, and encouraged many a budding photographer, and in particular women. I always said, Ron, you have more female friends than I do. He was an exceptional man and husband who continued to read, write, and print until the last few days before he died. He would be extremely proud to know that one of his prints was here in a Mercer Island collection.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
I have the 5, I think you have received the 5 images that we selected, and I have them sitting behind me, but you already have seen them.
Well, they're nice to see in person as well.
I might be able to make them a little closer here.
I bet they're just beautiful in person.
They are. They're actually, they're stunning.
I wish we could have brought them in a room. I wish we could all be in the same room seeing these.
So these are 5. I'm not doing a very good job here, but there they are.
If it is important to the process, we can certainly arrange to have them in the Myvel Gallery, and schedule a time where you guys can come by individually and over a week or 2 weeks and see them. So if that would help with the selection.
I'd love that, Carol.
Great. we'll do it. It's just, we just need to arrange the details, which we can do offline. The only thing I wanted to add is, the reason we proposed this is because of the unique nature of what Ron did, which was, first of all, to have an amazing career, but then to move on to a second career where he delved so deeply into a process that he ended up writing books that ended up in library collections. And I think, Myvel's mission is to, promote art, visual arts on Mercer Island, and to make connections with the community. And so I see this as a way to, reinforce the idea of notable residents and notable artists among us that makes Mercer Island, brings Mercer Island up at the same time, giving some notability to a very, very good artist and a talented teacher. So I see this, I try to look at things, with as big a picture and as most usefulness as possible. And I think the reason I think Ron is such a good candidate for this project is the nature of the work he did and his commitment to the island where he lived since 1991. So that's all I wanted to add to it.
Thank you.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you. And we're honored to be able to take a piece of his work into our collection. I think I share your enthusiasm for helping to promote and remember Mercer Island artists, because there have been so many in our history, and there are so many hidden gems as well. I think it's important to remember them, and this is a great opportunity for us.
Does anyone have any questions for Carol and Judith? It's been a while since the city has received a work of art through a donation, so I can also kind of clarify what the process looks like for you all. Tonight is really kind of the first presentation to the group. You've received the proposal, seen the images kind of in print. Sounds like there might be an opportunity to view them in person at a safe social distance, which is awesome. And I would love to take advantage of that offer as well. But from here, really tonight, you all, if you decide to move on this, you're really making a motion first to preliminarily accept the donation request, and then move forward with next steps for finalizing that acceptance, which will include the final selection of the work of art, finalizing the location, which I think if it's still what you all are interested in, the Mercer Island Library was a location that was
my choice
raised.
because he was such a literary amazing person. So
yeah. And so we'll need to include the library in kind of the process for the final process for accepting as well. But right now is really an opportunity to ask any questions. and, you know, then ultimately decide whether or not we'd like to move forward with finalizing this process. Any questions? Judith and Carol are fantastic presenters. They gave all the information we needed.
So I was going to say that if there are no questions or comments, we can move on. Would anyone like to make a motion to accept a donation? Oh, Carol, did you want to?
I can say one more thing. If it is convenient, we can. The gallery is open. The Mercer Island Gallery is open, or the Myval Gallery is open Thursdays through Sunday, and we could arrange to have it in there this week, this Thursday through Sunday, which would be the 10th through the 13th, and then next Thursday and Sunday, the 17th through the 20th. And if that is enough time for you, we can finalize that in email, but maybe it's worth bringing up here.
I think that's lovely. Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the process right now is we will vote a yes or no, whether to accept a donation, right? And then we'll move and we'll have some time to view these, and then we'll at our next meeting just take a vote on which to accept. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So typically in normal times, we kind of would task the Public Art Committee with finalizing a lot of the selection and bringing it back to the board. But because one, you're kind of a smaller group now, we're doing everything virtually, I think it makes sense to expedite that a little more. So yes, that's correct. Tonight, you can vote on kind of a yes or no to accept a donation, and then we will take care of all the final logistics, finalizing a recommendation for piece selection and location in between now and either the January meeting or the February meeting if there's other things we need to get in place.
Okay. And Carol, could you send an email to Sarah and myself about when you can make those available? Yeah. I think, Sarah, what you're saying is we're going to vote, and then if we decide to take this as a donation, we'll ask volunteers to go view them in person?
So yes, we could do that, or if everyone wants to participate in the process to kind of expedite it, we can do that. Typically, a smaller committee would make a recommendation to the full Arts Council, but that was kind of back in fuller times. You're a leaner group now. So I think that we could get by with everyone kind of weighing in at this point in the process to make it go a little more quickly.
Okay. So I'll just ask again, is there a motion to...
Amy had a question.
Sorry, Amy. I am so sorry. I don't have this participants list up the whole time. So yeah, go ahead, Amy.
Actually, first of all, I just want to thank both Judith and Carol for this incredible donation to the community. Judith on a personal level, and Carol on behalf of Myval and everybody involved there. And Arts Council, I think you all should probably be able to remember some of Ron's works in some of the exhibits we had up at the gallery. And they're just phenomenal. And this is a very incredible opportunity to us to grow the public art collection with a local artist of this stature. So I'm just so pleased. And Judith, Carol, thank you for being here to present to us tonight. If nobody else has any questions, I would happily motion to approve this generous donation and initiate the process to include the art in our public art collection.
I'll second that.
Well, thank you. So we have a motion by Amy and a second by Suzanne. Is there any further discussion on that motion to accept a donation? Amy, I'm assuming that hand was your first
Yes, I
Okay.
will lower my hand.
All right, if there's no further discussion, let's move to a vote. Sarah, will you conduct the roll call vote on whether to accept this generous donation?
Yes. Shishi Shakes.
Approve.
Suzanne Scone.
Wholeheartedly with appreciation.
Gayleen Baden.
Approved. Excited.
Erin Vivian.
Yes, thank you.
Amy Barnes.
Yes, thank you.
And Eric Gordon.
Approved. Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. It passes. Great.
Oh,
Yay.
Wonderful. Thank you to you both for coming to the meeting tonight and keeping this top of mind. I really, I mentioned that this had come to us last year and I was all set to bring it to the Arts Council at the beginning of the year, and then COVID happened, and Carol and Judith have both been working really hard with me to make sure that it stays top of mind. So thank you both for being patient with us and sticking it out, and we're really excited to accept a work of art from Ron. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate the work that you and your group do. It's amazing.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
And likewise to you all at MyVol.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
All right, so do we need to, sorry, I have this agenda to follow. We're not going to ask for 2 volunteers because would we all like to take a part in going and taking a look if you can? And let me say this also, I very much appreciate the offer to come take a look, but considering the circumstances, I don't want any Arts Council member to feel like they need to leave their house right now to do something like that. So you can surely have an opinion from the pictures that are provided in the agenda. And, but I welcome the opportunity to take a quick peek, masked and all that, right? So.
The opportunity to see all 5 of them, I mean, in person, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Carol, I hope it's by doing this, we're not creating too much work for you and Judith, and that was my way of expressing enthusiasm when I said I'd love that. It's going to be a highlight to get out of the house and see some art.
Yeah, no, the gallery is open right now. We're trying to recreate
I noticed
the show. So yeah, we're happy to have you guys come in, anyone who wants to, or if you want a private appointment. I know Judith is our private appointment person, so
absolutely.
You can her. I will send the information to Erin and Sarah and she can put it out to you. The only question is how long we should keep them there for your viewing, because we have other art and a show going on, and we're happy to bring it over. It's wonderful. We have a place to put it. It'll be wonderful to have up. So yeah, no, not at all. We're thrilled. Thank you really very, very much. This is a big deal for us and for Judith and for Ron.
Well, thank you. And you all can decide also, like, here's our window where we'll have them and we can come within your
the gallery is open until December 20th, but I'm always there available at any call. So we could have a private viewing, and then we open up again January 7th. But between those dates, the pieces can be there and we can have a private viewing, no problem.
But anybody that goes now, it's a holiday show, so you can see this.
Exactly.
That's right.
They've been doing a great job about keeping the door open and the ventilation going and the distancing. So
we've been really trying hard, and actually we're doing fairly well.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that I heard it correctly. If I go within the opening hours, I will be able to see the 5 pieces in addition to the holiday exhibit.
That's correct. I can take these 5 pieces to the gallery tomorrow, and they would be there, and the gallery would be open until the 20th of December.
Okay.
and then we reopen January 7th, but at any point, I'm available for private appointments. No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think that with that, we will, hopefully some of us will be able to go take a look in person and consider the pieces. And Sarah, you can let us know the next steps for
Thank you.
determining our selection.
Definitely.
Thank you again. And please feel free to stay for the rest of the meeting, or if you want to log off, you're welcome to too. I feel like it's going to be a longer one tonight than normal because of some of these issues we have to tackle. So with that, we need to move on to our second public art topic, which is to review the current requests for the art element at the future mixed use development proposed for 2750 77th Avenue Southeast and 2885 78th Avenue Southeast, or otherwise known as the Xinghua project in Town Center. So Sarah provided some background information in the agenda packet and will lead us through the current requests from the property owner.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see. Okay, still good? Thumbs up? Yeah, okay. So like Erin mentioned, I included all the background information related to the conversations I've had with the architects involved with this development or future development in Town Center. But just to kind of hit the highlights, so back in February, the preliminary plans for the mixed use site were submitted to the city for design review. And I noticed when I looked through them that they seem to include a couple of potential art elements in the public plazas. There's one of the images from the developers is included on this slide, and you can see kind of that tall red figure is kind of meant to be a public art sculpture. So that prompted me to reach out to our planning department and start the conversation and kind of remind and reiterate what the process is for involving the Arts Council in decisions related to art on private development that would be in the public realm. So I talked with the architects and some of the other project managers involved with the project back in April. And I presented to them kind of 3 different suggestions for how they could go about working with the Arts Council in order to add an art element to their public plazas that are currently in the design plans. So the first option was to independently commission an artist to create a new work or acquire a work from an artist, in which the Arts Council could provide counsel on that. The second option was to purchase a work of art from the Greta Hackett Outdoor Sculpture Gallery to then install at the site. And the third was to potentially recite an existing work of public art at the site. And on that third option, it's not necessarily something that I would recommend outright all of the time, but these developers had already expressed interest in the outdoor gallery. So when we were talking, I made sure to let them know that some of the pieces were for sale and some were part of the public art collection. And that interest in the outdoor gallery was really spurred by the understanding that, you know, with the Sound Transit station coming in, and with at the time some still the potential for development in that area, that we might need to temporarily recite some works of art that are currently installed there. So that was kind of the impetus for talking about the gallery in particular and presenting public art as an option to them. And of course, reiterated to them that, you know, the Arts Council would need to be involved in varying levels, in particular, be very involved if the public art collection was involved with this process. So over kind of subsequent conversation, they came back to me a couple of times. First, they were interested in purchasing or knowing a little bit more about 2 works of art that are for sale in the outdoor gallery. You can see them here, Asteroid Sling and Scheherazade. So I provided them the purchase prices for those. And then they came back and were also interested in the possibility of reciting a few different works from the public art collection. So you can see those here. Chaise and bench are currently installed in the outdoor gallery. Gift of Reflection was commissioned back in the early 90s when the East Boat launch, I think, was maybe either created or redeveloped. I can't quite remember from the public art record. And then Hope is a statue or sculpture that's installed near the picnic shelter in Aubrey Davis Park. And that was actually a memorial donation. So tonight we have, these requests. They've expressed interest in reciting one of these works of art from the public art collection. I've had some conversations with individual Arts Council members about this kind of request offline. So I'm really interested to hear everyone's feelings about the possibility of reciting a work of art. They have kind of shied away from the purchase element. I think maybe because of costs associated. The developer and the architect have kind of communicated an interest in keeping costs and budget low in terms of the art element. So I think we can discuss some of that too. But I have a couple of recommended actions for you all tonight. These are in your agenda packet as well, and then I'll stop sharing my screen. But there's kind of two directions I can go at this point. You all can direct staff to deny the request to recite a work from the public art collection and propose an alternative option. I don't think we need to identify that alternative option tonight. I think the next step would be to maybe identify 2 volunteers from the Arts Council who would work on thinking about that, or direct staff to conduct additional work needed to facilitate one or more of the reciting requests. And additional work includes contacting artists and donors, identifying additional costs related to deinstalling from the current location and reinstalling in a new location, and some other work that we would need to do, research related to VARA rights, and some other work that I would need to do in order to bring the final kind of request to you all for approval. I didn't want to do any of that work if it brought this information to you all and you all decided that you were against reciting public artwork to this property. So just keep in mind that there's still work that I would need to do, but I wanted to kind of be as efficient as possible and get your direction. So I will stop sharing right now and really just open up for questions, comments, discussion. Strong feelings for or against some of these elements are really what I'm looking for.
Amy.
Okay, I tried to wait a couple seconds because I do feel very strongly about this, and I wanted to see if somebody jumps in. I don't feel that reciting a piece of our public art really is a gain for our community, especially some of the ones that I know that are very appreciated where they are now. And so I think in the interest of, I guess it would be interesting to know if this is part of the public amenities that the developer is required to do for the permit. And if that's how they're using this suggestion to recite public artwork, then I don't believe that just reciting something that we already have in our collection and enjoy, that reciting it satisfies that requirement. If that's not what this is part of, then maybe there's some room for more understanding. Perhaps we have a piece of art like the Fire Flower that needs to be recited anyway. but taking the public art from where it is now, I don't see that how that benefits the community. I see it benefits that plaza, but not the community.
Thanks, Amy. Eric, I think you were the next to raise your hand.
Yeah, I'm pretty much 100% in agreement with Amy. If it was something that we had to recite anyway, that I would be in consideration of it. But if we don't have anything that we know that needs to be recited, I would be pretty much against that as well.
Thank you. And Suzanne?
Yeah, I'm with Eric and Amy. I don't see any reason why we'd want to do that. But I guess my question is, for a new development on Mercer Island, what is their, I mean, I know we have a requirement for public art, but is there a value? Like, is this, are they paying into the 1% for art fund also, or is this in lieu of paying into that fund? I don't know if I know the codes on Mercer Island well enough. So I would like to know what the budget is that Tsinghua is committed to spending on art. And then I want to put my other pitch in, which is I'd like to see something of the scale that's on the first rendering. You know, some kind of sculpture that's twice a human being height. I don't want any more little baby foxes or little baby people sitting on little tiny fountains. I think we're better than that.
Can I jump in, Sarah, and let you correct me if I'm wrong? But I'll try to answer your question, Suzanne. Is that the 1% for the arts funds come from capital projects that the city does? So we
Just
don't get
the city, not private projects.
No.
Correct.
So it's basically tax dollars that are sort of redistributed through capital works projects. So that's not part of it. And also from my understanding of when I was looking through the comp plan and codes, is that including an art element is one of the features that they can select to fulfill requirements. So they do not have to include an art element. So, and I'm gonna give everyone a chance to weigh in because I feel like we might be unanimous on this. But what I think that we should do is not direct staff to deny or use any of these sort of negative conflicting terms with the developer, because we have a real opportunity to use our advocacy hat and our persuasion skills to show them that they have an opportunity in this situation where the arts and culture community have been devastated, to come in as a little like superhero. I mean, they're coming into a community that is not 100% celebratory of what they're doing, right? Just the nature of Mercer Island, a new development. We haven't been historically welcoming. So they have an opportunity to connect with our community by possibly commissioning some public art that is locally sourced or from a local artist, and create some PR and some goodwill in the community by doing that. And by just like having an upfront conversation about the negative feelings that reciting or even proposing to recite some of our artwork can bring about, or maybe staying away from that, but just focusing on the positive things that could come out of them really investing in our community by commissioning something. A local artist would be fabulous, but the opportunities there for them are going to be more valuable than the small amount of their construction budget that they would spend. I mean, what percent, right, of a huge development project would they be spending on a piece of artwork that could bring them some really great PR and community positivity? So that's sort of my view take on it. Shishi, I think you are next.
Yeah, Erin, that's really well said, and I think that coming from a more positive, the superhero angle is a great one. Did I lose everybody?
We're with you.
Oh, okay. I guess my question was that well, they're getting a lot from building in our community, and I couldn't speculate what their budget allows or not allow, but have they had full visibility into all public art pieces that are for sale that could, you know, they could potentially fund something that meets their budget? You know, that would still work in addition to the option of commissioning a piece. So I think it's worthwhile exploring that. Just give them maybe more visibility into everything that is for sale.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah, thank you.
But I mean, I agree with everything everyone has said. So that's just the question I had.
I don't know, Sarah. I don't know how to answer that question.
I gave them all, like, they've had an opportunity to look at least virtually. I don't think they ever went in person to look at all the works that are on view in the gallery, but they did see all of the ones that were for sale. I really tried to push them towards Louise Hanks' piece that was installed last fall. And so I think to both Erin and Shishi's points, I think there probably is an opportunity to come at this from more of a negotiation standpoint or a collaboration standpoint. Erin and I talked about, you know, maybe some ways we could position this if cost is an issue, but I think that there's opportunity to try to work with the developer, rather than just to flat out deny the request.
Yeah, I think having framing it as an opportunity for them is a great way to sort of approach it, because you don't want to create some sort of animosity where they say, well, never mind, we're not going to include any art. Because, I mean, while that would not be, I think, a smart option for a developer, I don't know if they have to. Gayleen, I think, was next.
I had a question about whether if they submitted drawings that had art as a prominent component of that drawing, is that not a representation of what that project was going to look like? So if they then remove the art from that, are they not changing the character of the project that they've had approved? And the other question I had is whether we can demonstrate that the typical amount that a project would, of the caliber that they're representing that they are, would spend on art as part of their project?
I think those are great questions, Gayleen. And it probably, right, as like the legal mind would go to, well, is that a material change in their representation or not? Do they have to include it or not? But I think that the better focus is more like, by removing that or switching out this beautiful rendering of this huge sculpture that you have and then replacing it with this little tiny thing, think of what do they care? I mean, do they care about how they're going to be viewed by the Mercer Island community? I don't know, but I feel like that just reminding them of that sort of thing is helpful.
Yeah, and I would have to get back to you on that one to get some extra clarification about the design review process, or maybe Suzanne might have some insights from her experience on the Planning Commission, but I'll definitely follow up with that. You know, one nice thing, I think in the past there's been kind of a disconnect often between the Arts Council and these types of projects. And you know, thanks to kind of the work that we've done over the past few years and trying to reconnect with the Community Planning and Development Department, there are planners in the department who are coming to me and asking me what they have to, you know, what do we have to do? What's the process related to art and everything with these types of developments? So I think that we're in a good place to kind of collaborate and partner, but I do need to get some more clarification on your questions.
Can I just follow up? I think one of the reasons you're getting that is in a lot of communities now, it's like part of the process. It's not just that the public arts funds come from public construction, it's private construction too. So I would think that a lot of builders go in with the expectation that they might have to do that.
Well, I think that we are due for some good policy amendments and some code amendments on Mercer Island. And that was part of our discussion when we had some good working plans. One is to amend our code so that the Arts Council is, you know, by statute required to collaborate with the Design Commission on these processes so that it's written down somewhere. And also 1% for the arts could be rewritten. But that's gonna take some work, right? We can't do that right now. Okay, Suzanne and Shishi.
Okay, well, I like the parity issue. I think that's interesting, but I do think, and I think it's, you know, having that first rendering there, I think Sarah has opportunity to talk to the developer and say, you know, you don't want to, I don't think it's in the code, but I think it's a finesse thing, like Erin's talking about. We want to finesse this to get something amazing. And for my part, I could see, you know, doing some kind of match to the developer. I don't know if there's any legal things around that, but, you know, maybe we use part of our 1% budget to pay for the installation or something. They buy the art, we pay for the installation. There's a contract that says it has to stay there for the duration of the building, or we have to negotiate what happens to it otherwise, something like that. But also I was thinking it might be fun to, in this time of darkness, to have a contest or something. You know, a call to artists, the call to Mercer Island artists with a few parameters that say, you know, it needs to be big and bold and colorful. And, you know, obviously that piece we got last fall, Louise Hanks, is that right? I mean, I think that's a lovely, lovely, colorful piece. And I personally love it. So I would say maybe, I like the superhero angle. I like the look at all the public good that they could do by marketing their building through having an art contest or something like that. So that's my 2 bits.
That's a great idea, Suzanne. I like that. And Sarah can probably speak to the idea of a matching agreement. I think we might have done something like that for the Fireflower. Want to jump in, Sarah?
Yeah, there is precedent for that. Whether I think in the past, for some donations we've received, I think part of the cost to acquire the pieces has come out of the 1% fund. And I know, with pieces like Fireflower, which was, I think, installed as part of that development at the Farmers Building, we split the cost with Farmers to create that piece back in the 80s. I don't know how often we've done it recently, but I also don't know how many opportunities there have been to do it. So there's definitely a precedent for that, and maybe kind of a happy middle ground if the developer is hesitant to spend money. But I agree that, you know, not to lead with that.
Okay. Eric, did you have?
Yes, I think we could also sell that there would be a marketing aspect to it where we would market whatever piece they decide to purchase. You know, we could even do an unveiling or an event, you know, if this is post-COVID. So those are things that they could gain, you know, to really establish with the community. You know, we could put it on the website. We could say, you know, get something in the Reporter saying they purchased this piece of art, give them, you know, some publicity, and that could go a long way as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So it sounds to me like we're pretty unanimous in how we would like to instruct staff to move forward. Is there anyone that would like to, do we need to make a motion on this, or do we need to actually vote? Or just give you sort of a thumbs up, thumbs down, Sarah, on how to proceed? Did we need to formally vote on this?
I would go ahead and formally vote on it.
I see. Okay, that's fine.
May I ask a question first?
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for them to come and present their side to the council? Because I think it's kind of interesting that knowing that their piece was on the agenda for tonight, that they didn't make an appearance.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's opportunity for that, especially if the Arts Council, you know, as part of this next step, is proposing to collaborate or work on an alternative option in partnership with them. I think that they would definitely, if not come to the full meeting, at least meet with a few members, you know, offsite, and then present recommendations and conversation at a future meeting.
It sounds like it has to be a bit of a reset. It sounds like maybe they got down the road of relocating some art, and that was the appealing option for them. But now maybe that would be the more gentle way to say, you know, that doesn't seem to work for the Arts Council, but we would love to, you know, have a couple of Arts Council people sit down with you and kind of vision with you of some of their fabulous ideas that would be great for your development, you know, that kind of thing.
Also, what do you think about not vilifying the Arts Council as like, it doesn't work for us, but instead present it as like the opportunities for the community and the public benefit that they can provide and the community benefit, instead of it being like, we're the big bad Arts Council that said no.
Right. But I do think it, you know, I think that it would be probably not a good political move for them. You might say to them when you're speaking in person to take a beloved piece of art out of a public park and put it on a commercial property. I'm not sure Mercer Islanders would be thrilled about that option.
Absolutely. That's a great way to state that. And I just like, technically there's so many issues to doing that, that problems the city could run into with relocating art that has some established presence in its site-specific location. It's just not really a feasible.
I don't want to read about it, okay? They don't want to read about it.
Yeah, there you go, Sarah. Okay, so, you know, I guess I could make a motion. I would move to instruct staff to return to the conversations with the developer about the options that do not include relocating a piece of current public artwork.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Or an amendment. I might not have phrased that perfectly.
Second.
How's the timeline on this, Sarah?
We have time for this. We're still within a window where we have the time to work on it. I think that we would need to kind of come to a final option by the end of the first quarter next year to just kind of make sure that we aren't derailing anything else or derailing anything in relation to the development, but we're definitely still within the window of having this conversation with the developers.
So it is a pretty short timeline. So maybe one other thing that we could offer up to the developer is that we would help them identify some pieces that they could consider. I don't know.
Or at least.
Okay, so oh, go ahead, Amy.
Sorry, nothing, sorry.
Okay.
Eric, did you have something?
Well, I would just say if can they give us a budget so then we know what range?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so to clarify, the motion on the table is to direct staff to go back to the developers to discuss other options for including an art element at the site, and working with Arts Council representatives to explore what those options can be.
Beautiful.
Okay.
I'll take that motion and second it.
That do not include reciting a current piece.
That don't include reciting, correct.
Is there a small tweak that we can add somehow to indicate that we'll be helping them? Not that just we want to advise them, that we want to help them and maybe alleviate some of the
help develop a plan kind of thing or something.
Something that we're not trying to own the decision, we're trying to help in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what those words are.
Okay. Yes, I think so. So what you're saying, Amy, is you don't necessarily want to be perceived as holding a yes or no sort of decision-making power, or?
Well, I thought in the interest of collaboration, which I really liked the spin on being a positive influence on the decision, you know, helping them make the decision for the best interest of the community. Can Arts Council resources
facilitate
something, help somehow, that's not just that we want to rubber stamp their decision, we want
to collaborate.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've made a motion to amend the motion. What's the motion, Sarah?
The motion, as amended, is to direct staff to go back to the developer to discuss a collaboration with the Arts Council to identify the art element for the site. How do we feel about that?
That does not include reciting.
That does not include reciting a work of public art. I think I know where I'm supposed to go with that direction.
Okay. Is there a second to the?
We can discuss. I'll second it. Susanna second it.
Okay.
Now you can discuss it if you want.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this motion or amended motion to instruct staff to return to the developer to discuss options for including an art element at the new development and collaboration with the Arts Council that do not include reciting a current piece of public artwork? Shall we move to a vote? A roll call vote?
Okay. Okay, let's see. Suzanne Scone.
Yes.
Gayleen Vaden.
Yes.
Erin Vivian.
Yes.
Amy Barnes.
Yes.
Eric Gordon.
Yes.
Shishi Shakes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the direction.
Motion passes. I think we have 3 for 3 and unanimous motion passing.
Getting a lot of work done tonight.
Now we have another public art topic to discuss.
Oh, Erin, we lost you again.
Wait, am I here?
Oh, we got you.
Okay.
We got you.
Sorry, I was thinking we had 2 more topics to discuss, but I guess this final topic includes a few pieces of artwork that need to be discussed.
It does.
Yeah, okay. The final public art topic is a discussion of maintenance needs for 3 works of art in the collection. We received detailed background information about these needs in the agenda packet. Sarah, would you like to
I will
discuss?
take it away. Okay, last screen share for the night, and now I will go quickly on this one. Okay, so in addition to there being a pandemic this year, 2020 has also been the year of consistent damage sustained by the city's public art collection. Not really, but there are three significant issues that have arisen over the past 3 months that I just wanted to update you all on and kind of give you a timeline of where we're at or kind of what the status is of these works of art. And then in the interest of time, I think one of the discussions is kind of a larger, another kind of big picture discussion that we can save for another meeting. But so, you know, so like I mentioned, you have information in your agenda packet. These are 3 works of art that have sustained significant damage this year. Now We Are One is a memorial sculpture that's installed in First Hill Park. Back in September, one of our parks maintenance leads saw that the base of the sculpture was completely deteriorated. You can see a bit of that in this picture. So he made the decision in consultation with me to remove the sculpture for public safety, make sure that it's not falling on anyone. And it's currently being stored at our city shop securely behind City Hall while we kind of decide or have capacity to figure out how to replace the base and reinstall it. So that's kind of the simple one. The second issue is with gateway figures, which are the cool metal figures installed at the gateway in Town Center. Those of you who have been on the Arts Council for a bit probably feel like this is deja vu, because I think that these works of art are involved in a lot of issues all the time. So there was a traffic accident back in October. You can see that someone hit this piece and completely bent it over. This site was also subject to some damage back in 2019. Subject to a traffic accident back in 2019. There wasn't any damage sustained at that time. Back in 2018, there was another accident that damaged the Mercer Island sign. So that was removed and has been in storage. Now this piece has been removed as well and is also in storage at the city shop. So kind of the larger discussion that I'll save for another meeting related to this installation in particular is, you know, these pieces have been installed at the gateway for a long time, 25 years, 25 plus. We have issues like this often. I don't know why traffic accidents at that off-ramp are a big, but it's like every year, every 6 months, I'm getting information about a new police report and damage in some way to these pieces. So it might be a good time to start thinking about kind of the longevity of this installation in particular. I think with the original proposal for the gateway figures, the pieces were meant to kind of move around. I think at some point that was lost in translation because all of the pieces have an extremely secure cement base that makes it very difficult to move them around. But maybe, you know, it could be a fun project to think about in 2021 related to public art. What could the new life of the gateway figures be, if only to kind of keep them alive so they don't keep sustaining damage like this. But for now, the pieces that have been damaged, this piece and the gateway sign, are in storage. So, you know, there's no decisions that really need to be made. And then the final one, which is sad and, you know, I think really kind of a product of the time we're living in right now. Fire Flower, which is the bronze sculpture that's installed currently at the Farmers World Insurance Building was damaged a couple of weeks ago. We think that it was a victim of attempted theft. So I'll show you a couple other pictures. So someone tried to first deinstall the piece completely and remove it. And then when that wasn't working, they tried sawing off pieces of the sculpture, presumably to sell the bronze as scrap. So we kind of recognized this issue immediately. The contractors on site who are currently working on the renovations, or some of the work related to the renovations there, contacted us immediately. They also filed a police report immediately, and they've upped their security watch that they're doing there now to kind of prevent any future sort of issues. ArtSite, the conservator that we work with, the contractor, came out to the site last Monday, and they sort of assessed it, and they're able to help us move the piece to a secure location. And then if and when we decide to move forward with the repair, they can also take that on. I met with one of the project managers from ArtSite today out at the city shop to look at the location where we plan on moving the piece. And he was telling me that they're actually getting a lot of calls right now related to vandalism and theft, a lot related to graffiti, but they have had issues. I think he was telling me about a work of art in Issaquah, a bronze piece that one of the administrators there, not someone who works generally with public art, but had kind of brought them over and asked them, you know, what do you think's going on here? And they very clearly saw, ArtSite very clearly saw that someone had been taking a hacksaw and chipping off pieces of the bronze. So it's an issue we're seeing right now. Luckily, we were able to catch this, and luckily, I think this piece is like 8 feet tall and extremely heavy. So I'm impressed by the bravado of someone who thought they could steal it. But luckily, you know, we have a plan in place to move it off site and store it. All of these works are covered under the city's insurance. So I've already filed the claim for Fire Flower, and really the way it works, like your standard insurance, once we move forward with the repairs, will then be reimbursed through our claim. And we could do the same thing with the other pieces, or we could opt to, if it's a smaller fee under the city's deductible, which is $5,000, we could use money from our public art maintenance fund. So this is really just an update. And you know, one kind of recommended action I have for this, although we don't necessarily need to talk about this tonight since we aren't not really needing to discuss resiting plans, but it will be helpful, I think, probably at the January meeting. I can bring more updates related to these pieces and kind of what the progress is. And it would be helpful in particular to assign 1 or 2 volunteers, anyone who's interested in kind of helping to steward these projects along. For instance, Fire Flower, originally I planned on bringing that piece tonight to have a discussion similar to the Xinghua development discussion. For those of you who may or may not know, the Farmers Building was purchased by a developer called Ryan Companies, and they're working on renovating both the interior and the exterior of the building. They had reached out to us early on about the piece and with interest in relocating it to a different spot on the site. And so I originally was planning on having the project manager come and discuss that with you all tonight, but we've decided to push that conversation out until next year to align better with kind of the work that they're doing currently with the building. But we just happen to have this theft issue come up as well. So I think that there will be more conversations that need to happen, very specific conversations about how do we recite these pieces? With Fireflower, it's such a heavy piece. I don't think it will be feasible to move it off site, move it to be repaired, reinstall it at Farmers, then deinstall it from Farmers and reinstall it at the new location. So we have a different timeline to play with. It may end up that it kind of sits in storage for a little while until we know where it's going to go, and then we can move forward with the repair. So those are really just updates. I'll stop sharing my screen now. No real action needed on any of those right now, but be thinking about them, and in particular the issues related to Fireflower, but also Gateway. There may be more opportunity to discuss kind of the life of that installation as a whole in the future.
Thanks, Sarah. I just am thinking about whether our staff, I know the answer to my question probably is because we don't have the staffing right now at the city. There's probably not somebody taking stock of our public art collection. I'm just thinking of the pieces that are smaller and easier to move. Has anyone checked in on some of these recently? And does anyone who has some time, who maybe is out walking, do we want to make a little volunteer art watch position on the Arts Council? Like, are all the pieces of flock still there? Are, is the puppy still there? The hidden deer, the things that are smaller, the twin foxes, although I don't think somebody would try to mess with that one right there. But is that an idea that people would be interested in keeping a watch out? Because what if something was taken and we didn't know for a long time?
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. I will say, a lot of the works of the public art collection are in city parks, and actually our parks maintenance crew is really good about kind of checking on things. Like, they know, when I first started, or even when I was a year in here, I needed their help to find some of the pieces because I was like, I don't know where to find this, and they know all the spots. So they're pretty good at keeping a watch. But I think knowing that, I think that in particular sort of hit home with me today when I was talking to Roger from ArtSite and hearing about other communities dealing with potential theft and issues like that. I think, I'm working remotely. I'm not in Luther Burbank like I usually am to walk around and look at works of art. So I think it would be helpful, if you all are out and about, just kind of checking on things. And you can find all the works of art in the public art collection on the public art story map. It is updated and correct so that, if you're just out and about, you can kind of pop around and see how things are doing.
I mean, if somebody was so bold as to try to steal that huge sculpture in that location, what would it take to chip out some of those bronze inlays, like the milk bottles or the horseshoe? I don't know. I mean, just something that we could think about keeping our eye out for. It's too bad. Does anyone else have comments? I thought I saw a hand raised.
I was gonna raise mine.
Amy.
Sorry.
Yeah, Gayleen, I saw Gayleen's.
Yeah, I had a question about whether or not when something like the figure that was hit by a car, I would assume we know who the driver was, and does the city pursue funding for the repairs from that? Yeah.
Sometimes we don't know who it is. In particular at that location, there's a lot of late night issues. Like, I think this one, this time around, it happened overnight. And so the driver picked up and left, I think. It was actually reported to us by Sound Transit because they were worried that potentially one of their guys had hit it. And so they wanted to make sure, and they did their due diligence. So, and yeah, I think, to answer your question, no, I don't think we've ever really pursued anything in that way. But it's definitely worth looking into, especially with more frequent issues like at the Gateway.
Amy.
I was just going to mention that I think it's a great idea that we keep an eye on our art and help with that. And one of the things that, a goofy thing that came to my mind first was that the police department has a Paws on Patrol program. If you're not aware of it, people can sign up for their dogs and we get trained on how to identify suspicious behavior or report it to the police. And so if I'd be happy to volunteer to reach out to the officer that runs that to see if we could coordinate some kind of collaborative effort that we could get the Paws on Patrol program. Those people are walking their dogs all over the island. Maybe we could enlist their help and educate them a little bit.
That's a great idea. Just provide them with the list of art and say, when you're out walking, keep an eye on these guys.
Okay, and that's something that I can do by myself, right? With I don't need an approval. I mean, is that within bounds?
Just CC me on the message
Okay.
if you're going to reach out via email. But I think that's a great idea, and I think you know, we could put some calls out. I know so Fireflower, because Jessie, their city manager, included it in her city manager report last week at City Council. So then the Mercer Island Reporter picked it up and they ran a story with one of the images. I can't remember. I think it might have run today. I can't remember. All the days blur together. So, you know, it is kind of a good idea, although it's a slightly unfortunate and negative way to keep the public art collection top of mind. I think it would be great to kind of do a call to action to the community, you know, put it out on Nextdoor. We've seen other conversations related to public art, like birds from the flock installation disappearing and wanting to know where they went and everything. So it could be a good conversation starter and a way to re-engage the community with the public art collection.
I'll check it
Good
out.
idea, Amy.
Awesome.
And thanks for offering to reach out about it. Okay, well, with that great news, is there any last thoughts? How's everyone feeling about being done with 2020? Can only get better from here, right? No, does anyone have anything, any thoughts or comments, questions?
2021 will be better, for sure.
Okay, well then, thank you all for sticking around. This is one of our longer meetings, so appreciate your time, and I look forward to reconvening in 2021 and continuing to re-envision what we're going to look like in the next years to come. So
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, and early happy holidays.
yes, happy holidays, everybody.
Stay safe.
Bye.